Jojo's Bizarre Adventure is known across the anime scene as being one of the most impactful anime and manga of all times. Throughout the years, Jojo has brought larger-than-life characters and absolutely bizarre fights to viewers, with a unique impression that can't be explained any other way other than it's Jojo's. In a series already famous for creating impactful and climactic characters, each Jojo villain is still the highlight of each series, bringing an epic climax where the stakes have never been higher. Each villain is an obscenely powerful force that can manipulate time, change space, or changing fates by skipping time. Yes, King Crimson is easily explained. The fight scenes with each villain push the envelope for what it means to be in JoJo's, and are perfect embodiments of the series. However, the icing on the cake for each villain is their extremely ironic deaths, or demise might be more accurate for some. Each villain is a complete story, with their defeat somehow being related to their philosophy as a villain. If you look at every villain individually, you can trace how each death is an ironic and poetic ending for each villain. First, let's take a look at Dio. Dio is not only the first villain of the series, but in a lot of ways, he's the quintessential JoJo's villain. JoJo's villains are defined by their power, an overwhelming force that seems like it's completely impossible to overcome. Starting as early as his introduction, Dio dominates Jonathan in almost every aspect, seeming to be a truly impossible obstacle that Jonathan can only overcome through sheer force of will. However, to truly understand Dio, we need to understand that he didn't start out as powerful, but weak. Abused by his father, Dio understands power since he was a kid, giving him a twisted view on human interactions. Dio views humans on a power hierarchy, with the most fear and respect deserving for those at the top. At first, this causes Dio to pursue power in the most human way possible, by obtaining money. Dio looks to use the Joestar's fortune to catapult himself to a powerful position, but is stopped by Jonathan, since Dio wasn't powerful enough. Understanding how Dio views power, it's easy to understand that when confronted with a choice in his humanity or power, the answer came all too easily. Surpassing what it meant to be human, Dio views himself on top of the power hierarchy. However, his sacrifice would not only be useless in the end, but his undoing, as in part 1 he would be again defeated by his brother, who didn't sacrifice his humanity. Despite Dio's ability to gain power, Jonathan matches him all the way, leaving Dio with respect he's shown to no one else. Somehow, his brother managed to overcome the power hierarchy that Dio holds so dear. Because of this, Dio can only come to one conclusion: Jonathan is equal to him. So in order to become the most powerful thing alive, Dio needs Jonathan's body. While Dio certainly could have remained hidden until his brother passed away, he convinced himself to pursue this man he respected. This, however, is what leads to his downfall, as his pursuit for power eventually imprisons him for over 100 years. While Dio is the quintessential villain in JoJo's, he never really reached the heights of power that other JoJo villains are categorized by. Rather, that was done by the second JoJo villain, Cars. Cars really ascended what it meant to be a JoJo villain. While Dio was certainly an unstoppable force, he never truly reached the heights of godlike powers, a trait that would become common in future JoJo villains. Cars, however, was the first. Cars couldn't age, and would simply regenerate any wounds he sustained. If it wasn't for the sun, he would be in all aspects an immortal. And while most people would view this as a gift, that wasn't enough for Cars. His plight was not only to surpass the sun, but rather past the need for survival, and the laws of this universe, and by extension, its creator. This is first symbolized by the sun, but then by the earth itself. In the end, he actually accomplishes his goal, and is able to control all life. He becomes the alpha predator, and nothing in the world could kill him. By all means, Cars did achieve his goal. However, his demise would bring into question if his goal was ever worth pursuing. It's important to note the irony might not be in their defeat, but rather their demise, and no one shows this better than Cars. When defeated by the Earth itself, Cars is launched into space. Thanks to his immortality, Cars could not die from this. However, this era would eventually become his tomb for all eternity. As he floats away from the Earth, seeing it one last time, It's a poetic representation of his goal of dominating nature, and a stark realization that overcoming nature was never in his reach to begin with. As the Earth fades away, Cars might just realize the futility of his plight, and much like the Earth, it will remain forever out of his reach. Cars was the alpha and the omega of Jojo's villains, with the first to introduce a new power level to Jojo's, but also a fatal flaw in the way Araki was writing Jojo's, forcing him to make a change demonstrated well by his next villain. With the introduction of Part 3, we saw the reintroduction of Dio, but this time he had the same overwhelming aura like Cars. Dio is perhaps the most memorable and popular out of the Jojo villains, which might have to do with the fact that he's the most simple. Unlike Cars, he isn't striving for power to defeat some great invisible force, rather he's striving for power so he can rule over others. We can see this through his actions. He chooses the politician over the driver since he gets to exert his power over someone more powerful. Why does he force the mother to choose submission instead of just converting her? Well, it's since the very act of submission was what was important to him. As we discussed, Dio sees the world in a way of a power hierarchy, and he needs to be at the top. Dio only loses his cool when there's someone who is equal to him on his hierarchy, or when someone refuses to submit to it. When we last left off Dio's story, he managed to retrieve the body of Jonathan Joestar, and once again ascend the power hierarchy to the top. But what he didn't realize is that after sleeping 100 years, the world had changed to one beyond Hemon and vampirism. Part 3 is a significant part amongst JoJo fans, as is the part that introduced stands into the story. Punchy ghost for non-JoJo fans. This is also where the power shifted well beyond the limit it once followed, as stands were significantly stronger than Hammond or vampirism ever was. Part 3 makes sure to point this out several times during its run. The old ways are gone and stand users are here to stay. Fortunately for Dio, he is well equipped for the age of stands. His stand is called the World, since it will help him rule over the world. The World is absolutely the strongest stand in Part 3. With the unique power of freezing time, it's easy to see why. Thanks to his stand's power, Dio is again confident that he's back at the top of the hierarchy, and that no one could challenge him. Unless someone randomly happened to also have the same stand power.
Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
While Star Platinum's sudden ability to stop time seems to come out of left field for many JoJo fans, it's in order to help explore Dio's philosophy. Meeting Jotaro is absolutely a reality check for Dio, who's up to this point was convinced that no one could go toe-to-toe with his stand, thanks to its ability to stop time. However, once Jotaro shows he has the exact same ability to freeze time, Dio's hierarchy once again is destroyed, as there was now someone who could stand up next to him. At the start of the fight, Dio was his old self, cocky and in control, choosing inconvenient means of attack to flex his power as much as he can, so he can truly dominate his opponent. Once Star Platinum's true power is revealed, however, Dio loses his cool and is thrown into a frenzy, only regaining his composure again after consuming Joseph's blood, re-establishing in his mind his hierarchy. Dio's defeat, however, came at the hands of this hierarchy, as once he dismissed Jotaro as a threat, it spelled out the end for Dio, and the end of JoJo's second god. But perhaps things like power hierarchies and ascending to godhood are a bit too eccentric for every JoJo's villain. And this couldn't be truer than for the likes of Yoshikage Kira. Not every society believes in gods or predetermined destinies, but even the simplest man understands the concept of luck. Yoshikage Kira was a far departure from your average JoJo's villain, and stands out in an already unique cast of characters. If there was one word I could use to describe Kira, it would be spoiled. Kira wishes to be free from attention, however, at the same time, giving in to his base urges of killing. He wants to live a simple life, while robbing it from others. Kira wants his cake, and he wants to eat it too, giving into the same kind of greed that many JoJo villains before him had. The greed for power, to live as they want. Unlike Cars, however, he doesn't want to transcend nature. Unlike Dio, he doesn't want people to follow him. He just wants to ignore the rules of society while having them protect him. Compared to other JoJo villains, his defeat wasn't due to a named character, but an absolute accident. Kira's death wasn't at the hands of anyone other than Lady Luck, something he swore that was on his side. He was ran over since the driver didn't notice him, an ironic twist when you realize that Kira didn't want attention. Finally, Kira's spoiledness of wanting to live a peaceful normal life, but also wanting to do as he pleased, having society protect him, but not others, was killed by a vehicle that protects society. Truly, in a raw sense, his death was the most ironic in all of JoJo's, with a three-pronged ironic twist to carry his defeat. Not by the hands of a hero, but by the things he relied on. For Yoshikage Kira, perhaps fate really wasn't on his side. But that was a fatal flaw that his successor would not have. One of the interesting things that developed from Part 4 was this idea that stands would manifest or evolve to suit the desires of the ones possessing them. While this idea was briefly touched upon in Part 4, it would be fully explained in Part 5, both for its protagonist Giorno and for its antagonist Diavolo. Diavolo is a lot like Dio. He views himself as above others and sees a hierarchy where he's at the top. However, unlike Dio, his views are more complex. Diavolo was given the ability to see fate through epitaph. These visions are 100% useless, unless it can be changed by the other part of his stand, King Crimson. This mastery of fate goes to his head, but unlike Cars, it's not something he wished to overcome. Rather, he believed fate itself is rewarding him. This ability to change his fate is more than likely why he hates the past, since while his stand allows him to determine the future, he has no ways of undoing the past. So, the most ironic twist of fate for him came again from not his defeat, but his demise. When Giorno is reborn with Golden Experience Requiem, he is not given the ability to change fate, but rather leave it out of someone's reach entirely. The death loop Diavolo is trapped in is the most ironic outcome for the character. For a character so obsessed with reaching the end and the truth, it becomes consistently out of his reach. Instead, he is forced to live through each death over and over again, unable to move past it and being stuck in the past for all eternity. So, out of the first 5 JoJo villains, each of them met an ironic fate, even if it wasn't from their direct actions. I believe this speaks a lot about Araki's writing style for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. The reason his characters are remembered and loved are due to their larger-than-life character traits. Each character fully explores a concept inside and out, and each concept in JoJo's is fully explored, and their ironic demise makes the most sense when going with the theme, being the icing on the cake for every JoJo villain. JoJo doesn't have the best characters in all of storytelling, nor the best story, or even the best action, but rather how Araki explores these concepts fully and has them interconnect with the character's action, dialogue, and even their fates, leaves the reader with a very unique experience that's hard to describe in any other way than it's JoJo's. I'm America Jin. Thanks for watching.